What has stepping out of the hot seat, the CEO role, what has it allowed you to see more clearly about leadership in general and also about yourself?
Probably the most important thing I learned from both AngloGold and Anglo-American is sometimes when you're the leader and you're walking through your vision or your perspectives on things and people are nodding, you're assuming that they understand. And what became clear to me both after leaving AngloGold Ashanti and Anglo-American is that sometimes people nodding didn't necessarily mean they actually understood what you were saying.
Welcome to Investec Minds. In each episode, analysts from the equity research team at Investec Corporate and Investment Bank sit down with a former chief executive who helped define their industry at a critical point in its history.
So I think the first thing as a leader is always be sensitive and aware of the fact that people may not either understand it, and that you constantly need to test their understanding or their interpretation of what you said to make sure you're aligned. And I think I probably could have done a better job on that, because there were things that happened after I'd left Anglo-American that I scratched my head at, and I said, I thought we'd agreed on that particular point. And obviously that wasn't the case. And then secondly, you've really got to make sure you dig as hard as you can to make sure there is alignment through the organisation. And being the leader, it can be a little bit lonely at times, and people tell you what they think you want to hear, and that's not terribly helpful.
So if I look at the parts of your career that we're most familiar with, so AngloGold Ashanti and Anglo-American, both of those periods when you were at those companies, it was major transformations underway of those organizations. I wanted to ask, was there like a particular philosophy or maybe a framework or a playbook that you used to focus that transformation?
Firstly, I always made the point, it is about people. And a very famous quote from many years back from Henry Ford, when he made the point that you could take away his factories and destroy everything else he had in the organisation, but if you took away his people, he had nothing. And he said, if you took away my factories, I can always rebuild them. And so it's about people. And leadership is not granted as a function of the position you have. It's earned through the way you connect with people and how you lead people. And for me, that's the starting point. So if I start in any organisation, that first 3 months is listening to as many people as I can, give their perspectives on the business, what's working, what's not working, what frustrates them. Really important, the first point. Second point is connected to that. When I was with Rio Tinto many years ago, again in coal, we were trained on a new approach to leading and setting up the organisation to be more productive. And it was around people, and it was called the requisite model, stratified systems. It was an organisation model and not just an organogram. It's the way you set up an organisation, making sure you've got the accountabilities properly structured. And then the last point, which again connects to people, the systems and the structures you put in place are about people and about behaviours, with a view to ultimately changing culture, because you don't just wiggle your nose or wave a magic wand and hope culture changes. Culture ultimately becomes a function of the systems, the structures and the people that you put in place to try and create new approaches, new conversations, bring everybody into the game and make them all part of something different, and that in and of itself creates a new culture. So all of those pieces come together, and if I go to the industrial side, I use a lot of industrial logic, so advanced industrial systems and how they integrate, support people doing the right work. So it's a very non-traditional mining approach. The mining structures and approaches are ingrained in me as a mining engineer, but the industrial approach turns that on its head and makes you look at how you put all the pieces together to create the most productive environment.